Well, over the course of the last week, we have brought you the pro and con sides of Bill C-10. That's a bill looking at regulating social media and big web giants in this country. And now we're going to hear from the man who's in charge of this bill, the Heritage Minister. We welcome Stephen Guilbeault onto the program. Minister Guilbeault, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Elias.
So I have to be very honest with you. We've tried to do this story and Bill C-10. We tried to do it well and do full coverage on it. I spoke to Michael Geist, who from the University of Ottawa, and he's been very vocal in his opposition of this bill. And then we also spoke to the Friends of Canadian Broadcasting, Daniel Bernhard, the executive director, and we were assuming he would be an advocate for the bill. And it turns out, through the course of both those interviews, it was just lots and lots of problems with Bill C-10. It seems like you're getting it from everyone, whether it's the conservatives or people that would normally be on your side in this. Minister Guilbeault, are you surprised at all of the negative reaction to Bill C-10?
No, I'm not. We're trying to ensure that web giants pay their fair share when it comes to Canadian artists, Canadian culture. And they're not happy about it. And was I expecting pushback from some of the wealthiest companies in the world who've been getting a free pass for more than a decade? Was I expected that this would go down like a walk in the park? No, absolutely not. And I could list you, Elias. I don't know how many dozens of organizations across the country who support what we're doing. Independent media producers, music writers, music publishers, trade unions, APTN, l'Union des Artistes in Quebec, la Guilde des Musiciens, la Disque. They're
sure.
And the NDP and the Bloc Québécois. So some people are opposed, and I could quote you university law professors who think that what we're doing is the right thing, but not everybody agrees. I understand that.
Do you think you've got the right focus here? I think about the laws that were proposed in Australia that got a big reaction too as they tried to regulate big web giants like Facebook and Google. It seemed that Australia's approach was, let's just make sure the marketplace works. When there's a monopoly that has too much power, let's try and fix that. It seems like your legislation goes above and beyond. It dabbles in user-generated content, and there's a lot of controversy about that. Does Bill C-10 go far? Give me the argument that it doesn't go too far.
Well, you quote the Australian experience, and I have spoken many times with the Australian minister who's in charge of that, and you may recall that it didn't go down so well for them either. Google shut down all the links between the Australian government, Australian newspapers, Australian media, and Facebook. Sorry, I said Google, but it's Facebook. So when I say that these companies aren't happy that governments are starting to put in regulations to rein them in a little bit, and I think people, listeners on your show know that these companies are amongst the richest in the world. They made record level profit during the pandemic, and I think most people would agree. Not everybody, but most people would agree that they should be paying their fair share.
There's no argument, Minister Guilbeault. There's no argument from me. I run with the mantra: if Facebook is against it, then it's probably a good thing for society. So I'm not concerned about the Google and Facebook. I'm more concerned about the opposition that's coming from Canadians in all walks of life here. And I need to ask you about a section that was removed from the legislation, the latest version of Bill C-10. And I think that's what's caused a lot of controversy here about user-generated content. And if the CRTC will be able to regulate user-generated content. And when I say that, I even mean, the 18-year-old that uses music in their TikToks. Could this change the way Canadians share and create user-generated content?
So I think it's important for your listeners to understand what's happening. So the bill is in front of a committee. There were hundreds of amendments that were proposed to the bill, which is totally normal. That's how it's done. And now members of the committee, so from all political parties, are going through each amendment one by one. So you talk about, a section that was removed, but let me tell you about a section that is in right now the bill. It's section 2.1, and it goes as follows. Section 2.1 provides that individuals who upload content on social media platforms, such as Facebook or TikTok, aren't considered broadcasters. So this means that the CRTC can't regulate, and that clause is in. So and it's really the Conservative Party of Canada here, because everybody else agrees. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make you believe, because another clause was removed, that all of a sudden all of those guarantees are gone. That's simply not true. That is simply not true.
Listen, there's another thing we'll agree on here. I get it that, the Conservative Party is using this as a sort of dog whistle, liberals trying to take away your rights. What I am concerned about is, I think, more on the rational plane here, that the changes that you will make it so that the TikToks and the YouTubes and the Instagrams will have to tell Canadians, you can't do that anymore in your country. Americans around the world, you'll be able to share this type of content. You can't. That's my concern, is that, yes, it's targeting those big companies, but it will force them to change the way they allow users to create content in this country. Is that a reasonable fear here?
No, it's not. No, it's disinformation, and frankly, it's outright lie. The CRTC, which has been regulating broadcasting in Canada for decades, has never told a broadcaster, oh, you can't do this show, you can't play this song. That's not what the CRTC does. Have you ever been told by the CRTC that you couldn't play this song? Or no, that's not.
No, of course not. Of course not. But we see it happening. By the way, we see this happen, right? In certain regions, you try and create a TikTok piece of content with a certain type of music, but the laws in that country don't allow the licensing, and then you can't share that kind of content. That's what I'm worried about here. That there's an onerous thing that you're going to tell these platforms, you've got to pay X amount to the artists. It will no longer make financial sense for these platforms to offer those services, and now Canadian creators are left on the sidelines. That's my worry.
No, as I pointed out to you, so there's an article that clearly specifies that this law won't apply to individuals. They can't be regulated. And in terms of platforms, I mean, YouTube and its parent company Google is one of the richest companies in the world. I think that just like CTV is doing, just like CJAD is doing, just like the CBC is doing, they should be paying their fair share to Canadian artists, Canadian musicians, and Canadian culture. That's what this bill is about. Ensuring that web giants, some of the wealthiest companies in the world, are paying their fair share. That's what it's about. It's not about what you'll be able or not be able to listen to or upload on YouTube or your TikTok videos. Not at all. It's about fairness.
One last question for you here, Minister Guilbeault, and it just has to do with timing here. Is all of this controversy, all of this moot? Are we going to end up in an election before this bill even has a chance of passing?
Well, I don't know when the election will be. We have a limited amount of time before the parliamentary goes into recess for the summer, so middle of June, basically. And with the obstruction that the Conservative Party is doing, it's beginning to, it's harder and harder to see how we can get this through Parliament before the summer recess.
Stephen Guilbeault is Minister of Canadian Heritage. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Elias.